Thank you. So this is Lou Martin, and this is my Awakened Spirits Network channel. And I'm introducing the lovely old friend with a new name, Krishnapriya Newman. Yeah?
Yeah,
And I have
yeah.
to put my tongue somewhere, but I won't worry about it.
Well, it's important in pronunciation.
You be my guest. I'll follow your lead. Yeah? So
Yeah,
welcome. It's great to catch up with you.
it's beautiful to catch up with you as well. Thank
Thank you.
you. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Namaste. Namaste. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Krishnapriya, I know her as Karen, and Karen and I, Krishnapriya and I are old friends, and she's had me on her show many times, and I've shaken her down for huge amounts of cash. She's been pretty good about it for the most part. And bless her heart, the Hugelo Project, and we've done some great music together. And now you've been living part-time in India. Now you're preparing to move full-time to India. Is that right?
No, I'm going to be mostly in India, but splitting my time. I'm not a
Okay.
resident there, so I can go
Okay.
for about 6 months and then come back.
I see.
And to be honest, the weather, the heat makes it really interesting to come back to the US. You know?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
I'm sure the heat is impressive in India. Yeah.
It's on new levels. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're the saint to all the dogs out there. You're feeding 60 dogs a day or whatever. How are you doing with that?
At the moment, it's not that many. It's 20, but
Okay.
feeding them twice a day, and for several years now. And some dogs come and go, but yeah, it's quite a endeavor, and
Yes.
an endeavor of love, but really of necessity. You can't feed them once and be like, okay, see ya.
Yeah. Yeah.
What if they get used to you? You have to continue, and at
Right.
least that's my feeling, and that's what's been my motivation. And
That's
then it was a
very
decision
good.
to,
Yeah.
as much as I could, take
Yeah.
care of as I could. Yeah.
So you're always fundraising for that. So we'll put a link for your
Oh,
feed the
thank you.
dogs. Yeah.
Yeah. We accept not only cash, but also just plain dog food.
Okay. Okay. Through the wonders of the internet, we'll send you some plain
Yeah.
dog food. Yeah. Beautiful,
Yeah.
honey. Beautiful.
Because there's no employees, there's really no cost. It's only just taking the food and giving it to the animals. So
Right.
there's no need for
20 dogs twice a day. That you have my full respect, my friend, for 6 months out of the year. That's a project.
well, it's 12 months out of the year
Okay.
that
Yeah.
they're fed every day, twice a day.
Right.
But I'm only there for like this month I'll be there 10 months,
Okay.
but it changes. And when I'm not there, then there's some people that feed for me.
Okay.
And yeah,
Great.
so
Great.
they're fed every day, no matter what.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Bless your heart. Bless your heart. And we were about to launch into a story about moving and all of that, the joys of
Yeah.
moving internationally.
Well, what happened is that in 2017, I believe, 2018 in the spring, I went to India for the first time. And as soon as I got there, I was just like, this is where I'm supposed to be. And I'd been, studying Hinduism and learning about it and calling myself a Hindu without actually having a lot of practical on the ground, experience. And so when I went to take a teacher training for a yoga course, I happened to come to an ashram called Parmarth Niketan, which is where I now reside.
Okay.
And it's on the banks of the Ganges River.
Okay.
And just the whole, it's an atmosphere, and it's just a intensity that's so big. It's definitely a vortex. I mean, they even say that Rishikesh itself is a vortex, and especially those places along the Ganges. And we're in the lap of the Himalayas. If you look to the right or left or behind you, you see the mountains. And Rishikesh is a place where, and the Beatles ashram is literally like a stone's throw away. We can walk down there, and
Right.
but it's where all the saints and people have been for thousands of years. And
Wow.
so just bathed in prayer and mantra and tradition and just incredible energy.
Wow.
So when I went there, you know, it was just a knowing of this is where I belong. And at the ashram, they have this sort of archway that says, "Welcome to your Himalayan home." And when I saw it, I was like, yes, that's right. This is my Himalayan home.
Right.
And I felt like this is my home. So as soon as I came back from there, all I could think about is how do I get there again?
Wow.
And, you know, so I came back, I think in May that first year. And then the entire preparation was preparing to go there again.
Great.
And I went back in February and was there again till May. And, you know, for the first 3 till 2020, that was the case.
Right.
And
then what happened in 2020, boys and girls?
Yeah, well, I mean, up until then, I was studying mantra and I was working with a mantra teacher. And, you know, I'm a singer, you're a singer. I was starting to do kirtan, and I was invited to sing and teach on the yoga festival there at Parramath, the International Yoga Festival. So that sort of became a thing. And once you're sort of in that group, they just keep bringing you back and back.
Beautiful.
And yeah, it's really beautiful. And so then in 2020, let me jump back.
Sure. It's your
in
story.
2019, sorry, do you want to say something?
No, it's your story. Carry on. You're doing great. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
In 2019, around the summertime, I started having a lot of premonition about 2020.
Okay.
And it wasn't specific, but the specific thing was I kept getting numbers 555, 555. Everywhere I looked, 555. And it would, and I'm not a fearful person. You know that about me. I'm not a person who's running in fear.
Yeah.
But when I would see it, and I would see it literally, I would get up in the morning, and I always got up pretty early. I'm a very early bird. I'm not a late bird at all.
Yeah.
But I would happen to look at the clock, 555. I would, in the afternoon, see the clock, 555. I would do something on my computer, 555. And it was taunting me.
Right.
And it got to the point where I'd see it, I'd have like a pang of anxiety. And I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
And then I had a very good friend that also is, you know, following the same sort of study and trajectory as me with mantra.
Right.
And she and I would be roommates there. And I started saying to her, I'm going to get stuck in India in 2020. I don't know why, but I just know I'm going to get stuck. And we started saying this in the summer. Something's happening. We're going to get stuck. And she's like, well, we've got to start buying things. So we started like this list on Amazon, and like we bought a, you know, like, I mean, stupid things, but like a cooker and a water heater. And she's like, well, I know where we can get staples if we get stuck. And we were really
convinced. Water heater doesn't sound too crazy to me, my friend. That sounds like the essentials. Yeah.
Well, I mean, but it's not something you necessarily would need. But we started preparing, and we just had this sort of plan. Like, if we get stuck, we'll go up. If it gets, for some reason, if something happens, we're going to go up to the mountains of the Himalayas and go up into a place called Uttarkashi, which is sort of a village, but it's far enough from everything and it's sort of remote. And we were going to go there, and that was our sort of plan. And we knew we were going to get stuck. And then December came around, you know, and it was preparing. I always prepare for any trip I'm going for like 2 months in advance. I sort of started a pile in my house for anything I'm taking.
Good for you.
And, yeah. So I have in my kitchen an India pile right now.
Okay.
And yeah, so I around December, I had to do business with China to make these sort of cork balls. They're all cork, and you use them for massage, for a yoga massage. And I was working with a company in China that was going to put a logo on it, basically. Okay. And that was right at when Corona first started, and they didn't know what was happening. But I had contact with someone in China in one of the districts that was adjacent to the place where the breakout first started.
Right.
And I was like, what's going on over there? And she's like, I don't know it. She said, but it's really bad. That's what she said to me. Yeah. She said, people are getting very sick. And I said, are you sick? Do you have, she says, no, but people in my family are getting sick. Wow. And then she sent me a mail around, I guess, because I had gone home from Europe. I was living in the Netherlands. I came to the States, actually, 2019. And I was home. So it was around the 15th of December, 18th, 19th. And she said, we're going into a lockdown. Now, nobody knew what a lockdown was at that moment. And
Yeah.
our factory is going to be closed for this 3 weeks. And I thought, okay, 3 weeks. And then, but I was only thinking like, what about my balls? What about
For God's
what
sake.
about the cork balls?
Yes.
Because I was going to have them shipped to India.
Okay.
Anyway, so she was like, I don't know. When do you really, really need them? And I said, well, I need them in March. Oh, yes, we'll get them to you. No problem.
Famous
So
words.
yeah, so
Right.
but I stayed in touch. And then as this sort of COVID whatever thing came out, you know, I had a lot of interest. And I thought, oh, maybe that's what I'm thinking. But then the fires in Australia started. And if you remember, that was terrible.
Sure.
Oh, oh my goodness. Okay. So so I thought, well, maybe that's the 555. Maybe that's the horrible thing. It seemed so, I mean, it was so horrible if you remember.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And, you know, so that kind of faded into the background. And then I was still dealing with China, trying to get my balls. And so I left for India. And when I got there, I had 2 weeks. I got there mid-Feb, and then within 2 weeks, we were starting the yoga festival.
Okay.
And as soon as the yoga festival started, it was March 1st through March 1st through the 7th, or 1st through the 8th, or something like that. And the rumors started about COVID, and everyone's like, oh, it's nothing. It's just a flu. It's going to go by. Nobody has it. Meanwhile, spreading, get to the 7th, all of a sudden, is that right? Yeah, my father, the day, I think the 9th, when I got a call, my father had collapsed, and he went into the hospital, and it took them a while to ascertain. So in the meantime, so let me just tell you, on the news, they're getting everybody all excited, saying there's going to be a global lockdown. This might be a pandemic. And so people were trying to leave India.
Sure.
Right? Because everybody comes there. It's international festival. So they come there from all over Europe, all over the world, all over Asia. And people were trying to leave. And so I was flying on Russian airline Aeroflot.
Wow, that's a brave choice.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, when I made the ticket, I thought, I've never been to Russia. Why not, have a layover in Moscow?
Oh yeah, they're having a great time. Yeah.
Well, at that time it was,
Yes, dear, I'm teasing. Yes.
So yeah, so I got to I tried to change my ticket because I wanted to go to my dad, and I would first fly to Europe and then fly. And I was looking for the options, and I couldn't get a flight.
Sure.
And I couldn't change my flight. They said to me, from Aeroflot, they said, your ticket's not until May. If your flight is not in this next week, we're not changing tickets for people. We're only changing tickets for people who have tickets in the next 2 weeks. And so I had to wait. And in the meantime, my father unfortunately passed, but he was already gone. When he had a massive stroke, and he was basically gone, but it took him a few days to know if he had brain activity. And my brother was there, and we were on the phone to see him. And
honey, that's
actually a good friend of mine went there the first day he was in the hospital, a dear friend of mine in Florida, and he sat with my dad and he did the video, and he said, he was holding his hand. There was no response. There was nothing. And so I did get to see him. And I did have a little experience with my dad right before he passed.
Good.
So he kind of said something in my head, and then I said it to my brother. I just heard Dad say this, and my brother had heard the same thing. So it was kind of a nice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you share what was said, or is it too private?
Yeah. Okay. So he, Friday had been the 13th, and Friday was Friday the 13th was like a favorite day of his, and he always liked the number 13.
Right.
And by the time my brother got there, and the doctors had reviewed everything, and they decided to take him off life support. That was a decision we both made.
Bless you.
It took him 2 days to die.
Right.
Basically. And so we took him off life support on the 14th. And they said to us, for me, it was already late in the evening. For my brother, it was the morning. And they said, he'll probably go in like 10 minutes. Well, no, not my dad. He's just like chugging along.
Tough guy.
Yeah. And so And then right before, so when I was waiting for him to go,
Yeah.
and I'm sitting there, and I'd gone down to the Ganges and I was praying, and we were being pulled back in because it was late. Like they didn't even want to let me out because it was so late. And I was like, please, let me go outside. So I went, and I heard my dad say, "You really messed up." And I was like, what? Because, I would have loved to die on the 13th. And I thought, and he was like, "Why would you do me like that?" Kind of joking,
Right. This is
And
typical
so
of your dad. It's
that's
classic
very
dad.
typical. So I
Yeah.
called my brother because he was gonna. I was just calling to say, how is it going? And I said, I just heard Dad say, I really wanted to die on the 13th. He goes, "Oh my God, that's what I just heard." He was telling his wife that
Wow.
same thing.
Wow.
So that was,
Thank you for sharing that. That's amazing. Well,
yeah.
the synchronicity is I was born on Friday the 13th, and
Oh, were you?
yeah, and the last concert for Spirit I just did here in the kitchen for an hour was Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
Go.
I just thought of that because we just had a Friday the 13th.
Yes.
Yeah, I was reminded.
So,
Yeah. So that happened. And then most people were leaving. A lot of people were able to change their ticket, and they were taking off. And then by that time, there was no reason for me to go anywhere.
yes. Sure.
And when you lose a parent, the grief is so palpable.
Oh, yeah.
And I just thought, I'm just going to stay here, even
Yeah.
though we're leaving. There were immediate following the yoga festival was supposed to be a new teacher training, which I was going to be teaching on for this mantra sound course. And, but they canceled it, and people were mad, because no one knew what was happening. Right. So everyone left. Some people went other places in India. Some people left the country. And, I just thought, I'm going to stay here. I just need, I'm supposed to be here until April anyway. Maybe I'll just take this time for myself and,
Sure, honey.
work through all this stress.
Big thing to lose a parent.
Yeah. And yeah, so that I think that was the 15th. He died on the 16th. So the following weekend, everyone had left. I was there. I think by that Thursday, everyone had left, and I was sort of just there. And then all of a sudden, the government of India announces they're going to do a lockdown, a sort of pseudo lockdown tryout. They are going to lock down on Sunday they had a special name for it that I don't recall at this moment, but it was going to be from like 9 a.m. till 9 p.m. as a test. And then once they got in sort of I don't know why they did it like that, but once they got everyone locked down at 9 o'clock that night, they said, we're not opening back up for at least a month. And it's like, I'm stuck in India.
Yeah.
I'm stuck in India.
Yeah. So how long did it turn out to be there?
I was there until June. When they started doing repatriation flights, which is what they started to do.
Yeah.
I couldn't even get on one until June. Because then there were no flights, but only these sort of, I was like KLM, Lufthansa, and who else was flying? The UK airline.
British Airways.
British Airways were flying. And then also Air Emirates. Those were the 4 flying, and they were responsible for getting everyone in Europe and Asia to where they needed to be. Those were the only airlines flying. And that was, so I would fly KLM because I was going back to Holland.
Yeah.
And you have KLM, and it wasn't published on the website. So you'd have to look at the app every day, like at midnight, and see what flights would show up. And it would just be like one flight of that week. And you would try to get it.
Right.
Yeah. And
fun.
Yeah.
Bless you.
Yeah. So, but in the meantime, what happened is I was there, and I started doing what's called seva there, and started doing work for the ashram. I work specifically with Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati. She is a world-renowned spiritual teacher, and she's and also Pujya Swami Chidanand Saraswatiji. He is also very well, and it's his honorable like the Dalai Lama, very high in the spiritual world. He's done incredible things. And so I started working for them, but for Sadhviji specifically, doing our social media during the lockdown, because we had so many people there that were stuck.
Right.
We just kind of tried to run the ashram like it was a normal day, except that we couldn't go beyond the gates, of the ashram.
Yeah.
And and so when I was there, the dogs that I were feeding were on the outside of the gate.
Right.
So
Tricky.
it was pretty difficult. At that time I was only feeding 2 dogs.
Okay.
I wasn't feeding dogs on the
Okay.
God.
This is how it all began.
Well, I'd already been feeding them for more than a year at that point, because I had since 2019, right? I started feeding them in 2019, and then I had kept feeding them, and I had someone who continued to feed them when I was gone. And then so what I was doing is putting the dog food in newspaper and rolling it up and handing it out the gate to the guard, who was carrying it over and opening up and feeding them. And that's how I was feeding them during the lockdown. And
you're my hero. Lovely.
Oh yeah. Well, I was just when they close the gates and you're locked in and nobody's outside, it becomes very clear, like the street animals have no one feeding them. All of a sudden, the vegetable guy is gone, the restaurants are closed, the tourists are gone, and the animals started starving.
Yeah.
So what happened in Rishikesh was quite beautiful. People who weren't in the ashram weren't stuck. They, could go outside, but there became like this huge coordinated effort sort of online of people sending food out, making food available. I mean, all through Rishikesh, of people that could go places were feeding. It was pretty amazing. Like they were feeding the cows. I remember the cows got skinny really fast, and they started coming up and started eating the trees on the edges of the street and eating the potted plants because there was no food.
Right.
And so after about a week of that, I was freaking out. I was really obsessed with making sure that many animals could get fed. So that's when I started buying dog food. I had a guy who owned a shop that I was friends with, and via text message I would order dog food and he would deliver it where I said. And people, so that's how I really started. We started feeding, making sure that they were all fed. So I was there, and living there, I just knew that was my place. It was so clear. It's hard to describe. Like it just felt so normal and weird. Yeah.
Well,
very
of course, the Ganges is, where everyone goes to bury their dead or to burn the bodies and grieve and mourn and all that, isn't it?
Yeah, well, that's where they worship as well. So, it's a huge river, and the Ganges is Mother Ganga. It's the goddess Ganga in the form of a river. Her form is the river.
Okay.
So when you're, they believe, I believe that the river itself is divine. It's a divine being. Taken the form of a river.
Okay.
And the river, it feeds the crops. It nourishes the land. It feeds the animals. It's always flowing. It's never stops flowing. The minerals within the river are very interesting because it's very hard to pollute the river close to the source because of the minerals coming down. One of the big projects though is,
sorry, does it come down from the Himalayas?
Yes.
Okay.
There's a point where the Yamuna River and the Alakananda River meet higher. I mentioned Uttarkashi, they meet higher up, and they form the Ganga River.
Wow.
Yeah. And those rivers are also very pure. So they form and they come down, and you've got all the minerals from the melting glaciers, and it's incredible. When you go in Ganga, what's interesting is so you bathe in Ganga. It's called a sanan when you go and you dunk yourself in the river, and some people do that every day.
Right.
It's quite cold because it's melted,
Yes, yeah. Melted
ice.
snow. Yes, nice. Yes.
Sometimes of the year
Oh,
it's not that exciting. The river can be, depending on the time of the year, it's moving fast. The river is.
yeah.
Have you ever been to Niagara Falls?
I've not, no.
Okay, well, if you've ever seen a fast moving
Sure,
river, this
sure.
thing is chugging along. I
Yes.
mean, there is no
Getting,
uh,
getting, yeah, dipping your toe in. Yeah,
when
it's
you go in the river, they have chains that you hold on to.
really,
Because when you dunk, you move,
yeah.
and you need to
Wow.
you really can't stand there. And as the year progresses, like through the fall, the river was high. I hadn't been there in the fall until this year, where I
Yeah,
was there from September till December,
yeah,
and um, the river comes way up,
yeah,
and that river is moving. I mean, it's not like you don't even. I don't even. I was like, I
yeah.
don't even want to go.
From near it.
She should
Yeah,
take you. She should take you. And people drown in the
sure,
Ganges all the time.
sure.
So, but people also, what they do is they have across the river from where we are, but they're all along, and this is true throughout India. They have the funeral pyres where they
Right,
burn the bodies, and then
right.
they sprinkle the ashes. They don't throw the bodies,
No,
burn
it's
the
bringing
body,
the
they
ashes.
cremate them,
Yeah,
and then they release the ashes. As a matter of fact, I'm going to take my dad's ashes there
beautiful.
this time,
Yeah,
and release ashes there.
wonderful.
Yeah. So I finally came back in June, and I came back with the knowledge that I was going to be going back as soon as humanly possible, and moving there
Yeah,
to be there as much as possible.
wow.
But that was in 2020 June.
Right,
So of course, I wasn't going anywhere because the pandemic, but everything was preparation, and how I was going to do it was just kind of a thing of like, I have to sell my house. And then I thought, well, can I rent my house? What am I going to do? And I didn't really know. And um, I didn't have a bad pandemic at all. I've still not had COVID. I've
great.
been very fortunate, and but everyone around me had it, and I don't know why, but I just haven't.
You take
And
good care of yourself, my friend.
I
Yeah,
guess so. I don't know. I could pretend that that's true, that I've been super safe, but if I didn't have to wear a mask, I wouldn't. And but I didn't go. There was nowhere to go. I mean, I got to go to the grocery store.
yeah. Big
That was
excitement.
actually quite exciting because in India you couldn't go anywhere. So to go to the grocery
Sure,
store for me was like a super huge adventure.
sure.
But so around beginning of March 2021, I came and I ran into my neighbor who was a good friend of mine. And I said, how are you doing? She says, I just sold my house. I'm like, are you kidding? I said, when did you put it on the market? She's like, yesterday. I said, are you kidding me?
Wow, wow,
She said, people were lined up around the block.
wow, wow.
And I was like, really? There was two factors. One is that they were going to raise the interest rates in 2022. So if you wanted to buy a house, now was the time in the
Right,
Netherlands. And the
right.
house prices, just like all over the world, went crazy and went up. And I thought, this is it. This is the
Sure,
moment.
sure.
So I came in, I called my friend and I said, do you have a realtor? Because she had just bought a house also. And she said, I've got someone for you. And I called this person, and he came and did the evaluation. And he says, okay, let's get it on the market as soon as possible. Well, it took me till about May. No, that's not true. Till June, July. But literally from that day, because I had things I had to fix. And from that day until the house went on the market, I was working every day, getting everything ready, painted, blah, blah, doing all that. And that
I
became
remember
my
a bit of that.
life.
Yeah.
You remember me doing
Oh,
that?
yeah, sure.
Yeah. And so then July came, and they went on the market finally. And then, no buyers, no buyers. It took till December.
Oh,
Finally, a
right.
wonderful Indian girl came,
Oh,
and yeah,
imagine that. Small world. Yeah,
yeah. And she walked in, my house is, I mean, my whatever, it was, a apartment flat. I mean, it was great. I loved it. And I had no issues with it. It's a unique place, and so it's just like any house. You just have to love it. You have to get it. You have to have the idea. But she walked in, you could just see it on her face. She's like, you know what I mean? This was it for her.
Yeah.
And so she said yes. And then it was like, okay, that was the beginning of December. And then by the 14th of December, we had the deal signed,
Right.
all of the
Yep.
financing was there.
Yep.
And so my mother came and we packed for about, I guess, 3 weeks. And then I was going to my mother left on a Monday, which was the 10th of Jan. And I took her to the airport. And in the meantime, my friend Michelle, who's I think I don't know if I mentioned, she's a person I've known my whole life.
Okay.
Oh, okay. She's the only person I've known my whole life. She and I went to elementary school together, high school together. We lived together during college. We moved to New York at the same time. And then, we just sort of had these. And so she lives in the Netherlands somehow. She works for Greenpeace. She's just, we just had these parallel lives.
Yeah.
And
Amazing.
yeah. And she was the one that actually gave me the realtor that I called.
Yeah.
And she called me. She's like, I've got to go home. My dad has COVID. He's a diabetic. He's not doing well. That was on a Sunday. I'm like, when are you leaving? She said, tomorrow. I said, well, I'm taking my mom to the airport. When are you going to be there? And we didn't get to see each other. We missed each other by about an hour. But so I sent her a message Tuesday morning when she arrived. I said, let me know how everything is, what's going on. And she said, it's not good. And then by that day, he was gone, her father. So she got back just in time.
Good.
And, the emotion of seeing my mom after 2 years of not being able to go to her, and then her father dying, someone I've known for my whole life, it was a lot.
Yeah.
And so I'm supposed to close on Friday. The movers are coming on Thursday. And it was Wednesday now. It's the day after he died. And I was really just upset. And so I'd gone to the store near I lived in the city. So I just walked out of the house and I walked across the street to a place called the Hema, which if anybody's Dutch, they'll know what it is. But it's just basically like a little, it's like a department store, but it's small. It's not big like a Walmart, but it's kind of has Walmart-y things, but it doesn't have like a grocery.
Okay.
Okay. So that's,
we get it. Yeah.
I'd gone there to get a couple little things. And I was walking back to my house and I had a drink in my hand. I'd gotten a soda, I think. I was drinking the soda and my phone rang and I answered the phone and it was coming through my Skype number. So I thought, who is this? And I answered the phone. I'm like, hello. And this guy goes, hi, Karen, this is Ken from USA Moving. Have you thought about moving back to the USA? And this is 2:00 on Wednesday. And I said, well, Ken, it's funny you should call. I said, I am actually moving tomorrow, but, and let me just preface this.
Well, what were you planning to do? Why was this?
That's what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
I was planning on going to India as soon as I could get my visa. And I had to get a special visa, like what is it called? A sort of, not diplomatic visa. It was a visa that allowed me to go do volunteer work.
Okay.
At that time, because the tourist visas hadn't been reinstated. They said it was coming, but I was going to go as soon as I could. So we were already in the process of filing for that.
Yep.
I started filing for that mid-December. And, like the 20th of December, I sent my thing in. And they said it would take about a month. So I was going to go stay at the beach and in a little kind of business apartment for a month or for however long it took. It ended up being about 5 weeks. And so, I was like, well, funny you should call. And I had all my stuff ready to go into storage. That's what I was going to do. And then when I came back, I was going to stay with Michelle and I was going to look for an apartment. That was the plan.
Yeah.
So he goes, have you thought about moving? And I said, well, funny you should ask. I'm going to be moving tomorrow. He goes, oh, you're not going to move back to the US? And I said, Ken, unless you could be here tomorrow at 8 a.m. I said, I don't think there's any chance. And I was just musing,
Just
not
speaking
even
out,
think.
just putting it out there.
I know, but I wasn't even serious,
I understand.
you know,
Yeah.
because I knew that would be impossible, especially in Holland. I mean,
One imagines.
in order to
Yes.
plan, in order to do anything, you have to
Right.
plan it
Right.
ever.
But
And so he said, "Are you serious?" And I was like,
why not?
I don't know. He said, "Well,
Yeah.
think about it. I'll call you back in 15 minutes." So I was in that like mode of like shaking, like, you know, I don't know. And so in the meantime, he had called his mover people and was like, "I've got someone, they got to move tomorrow. Can we do it?" Now during the pandemic, everyone was moving and the movers were all really booked. I mean, it was a busy time for movers. But I guess, it was also slow time for them. They want a business. And so I got back to my house and I sat down, I was sitting and I was drinking my drink, just kind of chuckling to myself, like, that would be silly. And I was looking at like what I still needed to do before tomorrow,
Right.
before the people were going to come take my stuff to storage. So
Right.
I wasn't even packed to move. I was
Right.
packed to put stuff in storage.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is a whole different thing. Yeah.
Whole nother level. And so he calls me back. He's like, "Well, what's your decision?" He goes, I said, "Ken," I said, "I mean, come on." I said, he said, "I called my partner. We can do it." And I thought, and then it was just like a wave hit me like of emotion. And I was thinking about Michelle's dad, and I was thinking about my mom and how I hadn't been there in 2 years and how my dad had died without me being there. And and I went, "Okay, let's do it."
Right. Right.
Jesus Christ.
Amazing.
Like,
Amazing.
yeah, sorry to
So
swear.
you were planning to go to India because you got this phone call. You went back to the States to be with your.
No. I went to India
Oh,
just when I left India, because I had already planned. My
well,
dog
wait,
was going to
wait. I'm
stay with the
sorry, I'm
person.
lost. Wasn't he talking you into moving back to the States? Isn't that the
Yes,
whole conversation?
but he was going to ship my stuff there.
Right.
And I said, "Well, listen, Ken, I'm going to go to India and I'm not going to be back until May." He said, "Well, let me tell you, no, I'll be back at the beginning." At that point, I was going to be back June. And I was like, "Listen, I'm going to go to India and I really, I won't be there." He says, "Oh, we can put your stuff in storage till you get back."
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I was like, "Cool." And I already had an arrangement for my dog and my cat to stay in the Netherlands. I already had my ticket to and from India.
Right.
So I have another thing I have to tell you about this, which is really funny.
Okay.
But
So
this is
this
too
is
long.
this is the hand
Too
of
much.
fate, moving things. No, it's fine.
Okay, well, so I have a cat, right?
I want to
You,
talk about your spirituality at some point before we finish here.
we
But
can
carry
end the
on.
story. So long story short, I moved back to the US. I went to India. I went back, got my dog, came over. Then I had to go back and bring my cat on a cruise back because he's a flat nosed. And
Marvelous.
yeah. And so I kind of moved to India now.
Okay.
And I bought a condo here. That's where I am right now. So maybe this is too long. I think I'm talking for 40 minutes. So
Well, it's fine. It's interesting. I'm a little lost in the details, but you're in the States now, but you've moved back to India, but you also have a condo in the States.
yeah. So I
Okay,
spend about 5 months in India, come back here for 2 or 3 months,
I'm with
then go
you.
back.
Okay,
And that's what
very,
I
very
plan.
good. Okay, all right,
I could
perfect.
have said that maybe.
Well,
It's a
no,
long
that was
story.
it's you and I catching up. It's fine. But honey, what I want to hear is you working for these enlightened masters and you giving yourself to seva and service and music and teaching and all of that, and how, this little girl from South Carolina has become this you know, person living in India, practicing her spiritual path 90% of her.
Yeah. I always wanted that. I always wanted that.
There
And
it
when I
is.
was
That's a
little,
good
I thought,
start. Let's move the clock back and we'll start there. Carry
no,
on.
I don't want to tell you my life story. I'll just tell you that was since I was a little kid, I just wanted God. That's all I wanted. And I thought at one point maybe I would be a nun, but I didn't even know what that meant. I just thought I just wanted to do something where my whole life was just about God. And
Yes.
you can have a whole life about God without living in an ashram.
Sure.
As far as like being able to be part of worship and prayer on a daily basis, and again, you can do it, but it's different when it's, sort of it's different than living in a convent, or it's different than living in
Yes.
a,
Yes.
and when I got to India, I just thought, this is the life I want.
Okay. There we go.
And I've just felt so myself, really, like I was standing in my own truth about how I wanted to be, um, how I wanted my daily life and existence to be. And,
Yeah.
The thing about India that's so incredible is there's no pretense, really. I mean,
Right.
it's flat out in your face, confronting, and there's so much need there.
Okay.
And the need is to serve in some way. And so the ashram is involved in a lot of UN programs. They're building schools. They deal with things like bringing water to villages that don't have water, toilets, hand washing, training. Can you imagine? People have to learn to incorporate hand washing into their hands,
Yeah.
menstrual cycle,
Yeah.
explanations. And,
Yeah.
and then there's also programs where they're feeding people, and they have schools for young children and for older people. It's just immense.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
there isn't a moment where there isn't something or someone, and the whole thing is about, just serving, just
Right.
meeting people's basic needs,
Right.
so that they can have a chance to have a better life. And yeah, it's an incredible endeavor. And
Yeah.
so that's basically what I do on a daily basis, as
Yeah.
well as teaching and, singing and feeding my dogs, which is also a endeavor. But there's just a lot of programs that we are involved in, and that, there's always something new, something else, something more, another need. There's a tsunami, there's a this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. That was it, Karen. Krishnapriya. Yeah. I
Krishnapriya.
just want to make the journey from, doing readings for people 8 hours a day in your flat in Amsterdam to now living at an ashram,
Yeah.
feeding 20 dogs twice a day and working for these enlightened masters and having a
Yeah.
lovely
So
life.
basically, the sale of my house afforded me the luxury of having no more bills. I have no bills.
Yes.
I have no debt.
Right. Beautiful.
So that, I loved that house, and I always used to say that house is my retirement. And I didn't guess I knew what it meant, but it very much happened.
Well, it's different than you had in mind. Yeah. Than you,
I thought I would pay the mortgage in full, and
yeah.
I didn't anticipate having huge, not only that, but I had equity of 20 years of paying. So I did well, and it allowed me to completely wipe out my debt to buy a place with no mortgage. So I have a home. I'm not an Indian citizen. And so should there be another pandemic, I might have to leave again. You just never know. So you have to have a place to be here. And plus, to be here, to be closer to my family and everything. But as far as any of the stress that I had, say, starting in 2013 with uncertainty and all of that is just really gone. I don't have any,
Good.
I have no problems in that level.
Great.
But I still do readings. I still do that. I
Great.
do need to earn money. And so I do, and I still channel. But when I'm here, I do that full time. But when I'm there, I do it, a little bit less than part time.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
And Hugelo is still happening.
Hugelo is happening. I've been with them for seven. I don't know. I was looking back at videos, how far back it was, like 2014. I saw videos of myself. I don't know quite how I ended up doing it. I just started taking it over.
Yeah, you were the woman
running
for
the
the
Saturday
job.
web. Huh?
You were the woman for the job, I'd say.
I guess so.
Yeah.
And so I've been with them since 2014, I think, and we're coming up on 10 years. of being around.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that's been
Good.
really good. And we have a lot of good channels, including yourself.
It's a good show. It's a good program, and you run it well. Last time I was on, you were in India, and
Yeah.
lost you after about the first hour or something like that. And
Yeah.
everyone was great for carrying on, and we all managed, and that was wild. But yeah, Krishna, whatever, I
Yeah.
yes, Krishna Priya. Yeah, honey, thank you. I'll get it. Just take a few years of practice.
Yeah, it took me a while as well to get used to it.
Of course. Is there anything you want to say about the teachers that you're studying with, or to recommend
Well,
uh,
yeah, I mean,
courses to people before we
courses,
wrap up?
well, I mean, if you would have to come to India, but if you do want to come, you're absolutely welcome and invited. It's your
Okay.
home. You're
Okay.
welcome
Good
to
to
come.
know. Good to
You
know.
can go to parmarth.org, PARMARTH, and see .org and see what's happening there. There's there's yoga classes, yoga teacher trainings. We have the International Yoga Festival, and then throughout the year there's different. If you want to study the Bhagavad Gita or different Hindu texts, or you want to learn, there's so many different programs that are there, as well as volunteer opportunities if you would be interested in doing that. There's so much to do there. I'm not really, able to promote just one thing, because you if you come there, it's just sort of an all-encompassing thing. You come there for spiritual experience, and you definitely will have it.
Okay.
You come and just, in the morning we have what's called the sacred Ganga Arti, excuse me, what am I saying? We have the sacred Yagana, which is a fire ceremony in the morning, and that's where you do your morning prayers. But even before that, there's morning prayers that start at 4 a.m.
Okay.
They go, and there's different things throughout the day, and then in the evening we have what's called the Ganga Arti, which is music and prayer and meditation in front of Ganga, and then after that there's satsang, and in the meantime there's just a lot of other nice things. There's just also, we do a lot of, like I said, UN programs. So there's always celebrations like for, Women's Day or Education Day, and we deal with students. They have a lot of medical camps for the local people, for eye vision camps, for feet. Feet is a big thing where people, podiatry for people that are poor.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of things like that. They have their own hospital. They're doing, it's almost too much to
Yeah.
even.
No, that's great. I mean, that's exciting. We'll definitely put the link there, and I'd love to hear more about that at some point. And how big is the ashram? Would you say? How many people are?
It's big. There's I think more than 1,000 rooms there.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's very big, and it's been around for, I guess, going on 100 years.
Okay.
The Param Pujya Swamiji, who is the spiritual leader there, he had a beautiful story of how he became a what's called a sannyasi, which is the monk. And when a visiting sannyasi came to his home when he was like 7 years old, he's like, that's what I want to do.
Wow.
And he went and followed. First, the monks said to him, you're too young, and if you really want this, I'll come back in a year and we'll talk about it. So at 8 years old, he decided he wanted to do it. And so his family let him go with this monk, and they lived in the forest.
Wow.
And he did tapasya, which is acts of worship, but they're, you see like the guy crawling across India on his hands and knees and doing that kind of thing. It's so he what his thing was, he stood on one leg in the forest for 14 hours a day, every day for about a couple of years. And he lived in the forest literally with the clothes he had on in a little sort of, what you call like a teepee.
Yes.
And he was there and he studied, but he's also highly educated. And, after he sort of completed all of this study with his guru, he was sent to Parmarth and he worked there. And then at one moment, they handed it to him and they said, you're the person to take it over. And Parmarth means for the well-being of all. And that's sort of the methodology, that it's not only spiritual, but it's also green, that we take care of our physical bodies, but we also take care of the earth's body, the waters, the air, the plants, the animals. It's for the well-being of all. And so there's all kinds of programs like, everything being green, like cleaning up Ganga, again, toilet programs, just all of these amazing things that are happening all the time, as well as all of the worship that is going on. And everything is truly under the auspicious idea that, we are not the doers, but God is the doer, but we are the tools in God's hands to do whatever needs to be done. And that's the surrender to seva or service, is to say, whatever's needed, I will do it. And know that that is my sadhana, that my spiritual practice is not only praying and meditating, but my being willing to be, used by God and however I'm being used, or however anyone is being used, is also part of the practice of being connected.
Sure.
And so that's karma yoga, basically.
Yeah. Very good. And that's brilliant. What's happening with your music? You're just teaching?
So I teach mantra and meditation. I sing a lot within the auspices of, I can't say the word, of the ashram itself, and singing, doing kirtan and things like that. Yeah. Beautiful. That's what it's doing. And I write a lot of songs and that kind of thing.
Okay. Nice to hear all that. Yeah, no, I mean, there's a long tradition going way back of Westerners who have been, completely spiritually radicalized in the best sense of the word through encountering India, just once, let alone over and over again. So it really is, in many ways, the spiritual heart of the planet,
It really is. And it's a good place to come and get fueled up and go back, for however long people need to do it. I just really, I can't say that I'll never want to not be there, but at this moment I feel like very certain that it's the place for me. And my plan is to become what's called a sannyas, and to take vows of,
beautiful,
like basically a monkhood, or however you would say. I would become like a nun, which is going back to my childhood knowing.
There you go. Yes.
Yeah. So probably in a couple of years I'll do that.
Okay.
When it's the right moment.
Okay.
And so part of like taking the Indian name and you being dedicated to your guru is taking diksha. It's a way, it was kind of a ceremony, but it wasn't official. It's just something from your heart, that happens within your heart. And dedicating your life to service. And I figure, well, I did 20 years in the Netherlands. I can do at least 20 years in India. And we'll see after that what happens. I think that's where I'm going to finish out my life.
Okay. Well, you're blazing a trail, my dear friend, and I'm so proud of you and so happy for you. And I'm so grateful to get to chat with you and catch up a little bit, despite the the infinite detail of the story of your.
Well, I didn't realize I was going to go into such infinite detail.
You're fine, honey. You're fine. You're absolutely fine. It's perfect. It's perfect.
I realized like halfway in that it was too hard to explain.
It's a great story, and you were loving sharing it, and that's very fine. But yeah, truly, what you're doing is so inspiring and so uplifting and exciting. So I'm thrilled. I know you. I'm thrilled. I love you, and we're good friends. And I hope you'll keep letting me know what you're doing, and we can share this with the world and help other people see what's possible and learn through your beautiful example.
Yeah, I'll just say this. I think that the one thing that has happened over this, I guess what I was trying to explain when I went into such a long, explanation.
Yes.
How things just worked out in the moment they were supposed to.
There you go.
And
divine guidance.
Really divine guidance. And just even, Can I share one story with you that's
Yes.
short? You know, for 20 years, when I first moved to the Netherlands, have you ever been there? And you live in Europe, so
Yeah.
the stairs in the Netherlands are scary. They're like a ladder.
Okay.
I don't know that. The thing is that you pay taxes on when the old houses were built, you pay taxes on the full square footage of a house. And if you didn't, if you had stairs and it took up a lot of space, you paid a lot of tax on nothing. That's the Dutch mentality. So they made their stairs like straight up. So going up and down, and they're like this wide. I mean, going up and down the stairs, you have to
Risk your
do,
life. Yeah.
you do risk your life.
Worried to break a leg. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had this tiny little dog at the time, and I had to carry her up and down the stairs, obviously, because she couldn't do it. I mean, if she would just flip down.
Yeah.
And so I was walking down the stairs with her holding onto the rail, and I slipped.
Sure.
And it was a thing of, if I let go of her and grab on, fine, but she's going to die.
Okay.
Or I can slide down the stairs on my back
Right.
and save my dog. So that's what I did. And when I
Ouch.
got to the bottom of the stairs, I hit my hand like this on
Oh.
the ground, and I just sort of rolled over like, oh.
Yeah.
So for 20 years, I had my hand out of alignment, and
Ouch.
I had gone to doctors, and they were like, you know, this is just the way your hand is now, and sorry, and we can give you steroids, but we say to you, you know, I couldn't shake hands with people. I'd shake hands with people, and I always say, please don't squeeze my hand.
Well, yeah, you were crippled, honey. You were seriously wounded, you know.
So I was wounded, and so a lot of times if you ever saw me, I would be like this. It's just because my hand was in pain for
Of course.
20 years.
I understand. Ouch. Did this come to a happy ending?
Yeah, when I first got back to India in Feb, when I first went back the first time, I was walking along Ganges and I was feeding some dogs, and I went to step on a step and I slipped down and I went on the ground and I hit my hand. And people saw me go down and they were like, oh, you know, they saw me. And you know how when you hit something, you wait for the pain to come? You know, you have the initial pain of the hit.
Sure.
Well, the pain of the hit didn't come.
Okay.
So I was like, that's weird. And people were like, are you okay? I'm like, no, I'm fine. And I was standing there. And the thing is, all of a sudden, my wrist didn't hurt.
Oh my God.
I knocked it back into alignment. Yeah. So that was like a miracle.
That is a miracle, darling. Yes,
Yeah.
that's exactly what that is.
But both times on stairs, both times with dogs. Yeah.
And both times with you making a sacrifice to protect your lovely animal and risking your own health.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just thankful. And so now I can do everything with my wrist I couldn't do forever.
Life is good.
You know,
Yeah.
can you imagine?
Well, that is a beautiful story, you see, and I'm so happy that you shared that. Yeah, because this is, you know, just like the guy, you know, telling he's going to move you the next day and off you go. This is what people need to understand. You know, you and I know this because we've had these talks many times, that miracles are available for all of us, but we have to be open to it and believe that we deserve them. We're worthy of them.
I agree. And I think it's one of those things that it's not so much people aren't excited about having a miracle happen. It's just like, what do you do in the meantime? And you know, following the flow of what's possible, what's not possible, and not sort of freaking out about it, and just the trust that when it becomes the right moment, you will grab it and be willing to say yes. I could have said no to
of course,
that.
It's always a choice.
Could have also been perfectly wonderful, but it's turned out much better. And you know, it is nice to be back here. I live in a state that's maybe I'm not politically aligned with it as much, but the people here are very nice. You know?
Yes, that's what we always hear in the States. Yes.
Yeah, and there's an ease to being here. Things just are easy, I have to say, you know, when it comes to whatever you're doing.
What part of South Carolina are you?
I'm in Myrtle Beach.
Myrtle Beach.
I'm just right by the water, so
that's a dream spot. I've heard of Myrtle Beach for years. Everyone loves Myrtle Beach.
Yeah, there's like more golf courses than people or something.
Okay.
Not really.
Okay.
lot of golf courses. There's one right out back, and there's just everywhere here. And they have a couple professional ones, and then of course the ocean is, 3 minutes walking down the street, and so
Good.
that's really,
Beautiful. Yeah. Well,
and
honey,
it's a beach town, so
it's a beach town. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Brilliant.
I think
Brilliant.
what beach town is in the US, they're the same everywhere, I think.
That's right. That's right. I'm going to love you and let you go. And thank you so much for giving us 110% of what's happening on your spiritual journey.
I'm embarrassed about my long drive home. Okay.
It's brilliant. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Love you.
Bye.
Talk to you soon. Thanks. Peace.
Bye.
Bye for now.